Okay, so yesterday we began learning about the Medrash, Gemara. Moshe Rabbeinu is told by Hashem the Jewish people should give a half coin, and Moshe does not understand the meaning of the half coin. He comes to Hashem, and Hashem shows him the coin of fire from under the throne of glory. And we were trying to understand, first of all, what was Moshe's question? What was Hashem's answer? So we learned the Tesis and Menachos, Tesis and Chulin, and which seem to contradict each other. One Tesis says, Moshe's question was, I don't understand at all what this half coin is about. I don't know what the half coin is at all. And the other Tesis says, Moshe knew what the half coin was, and he just didn't know how this was going to be a kapara, how this is going to serve as an atonement. And we were trying to figure out, according to the first Tesis, says the Moshe couldn't figure out at all what the half coin was or the measurement of the half coin. So then what is the point of showing him a coin of fire? And these Tesis seem to contradict each other. He knows what it is, doesn't know what it is, what's going on. To understand this, we started learning two halachas about the half coin. One halacha is that the half coin has to be given in one installment. Other obligations we have to Hashem can be given in many installments, but the mitzvah, the half shekel, has to be given in one installment. Why is that to be given in one installment? Because it's considered like a korban, considered like a sacrifice. Just like it says about if someone steals from a convert, and the convert has no relatives, so who does he return the theft to? He returns to the Kohanim in that particular mishmar, that particular time they were serving. They have the rights to the theft from the convert. So we the Gemara says you can't return the theft in installments. You have to give it in one installment. Why? Because it's carbon karlachmana. It's considered like a sacrifice. Since it's considered like a sacrifice, therefore, it has to be given in one shot, in one installment. In a similar way, the half shekel is called a kapara. It's considered a carbon, considered like a sacrifice to Hashem, and therefore, it's to be given like one installment. What remains to be explained is what kind of carbon is it? Is it a carbon sibur or a carbon yachid? A carbon sibur is a carbon that all the Jewish people bring, like the carbon tamid, the daily sacrifice which our prayers take place of, and it was paid for by the half shekel. Since it was paid for by the half shekel, it makes sense to say that the half shekel itself is considered like a carbon sibur. However, another way to look at it is, right now, the person giving the half shekel is one individual. He is giving a half shekel. And therefore, there's room to say that his carbon is considered like a carbon yach, like a sacrifice of an individual. What's the halachic difference, whether it's a carbon sibur or a carbon yachid? What's the difference? Both a carbon sacrifice has to be given in one installment. You can't give a carbon in two installments either way. If it's a kapara, it certainly has to be given in one installment. So what's the difference? So we're going to see two ways of looking at this, and this will help us understand the Rambam. The Rambam, in describing the mitzvah of the half coin, the Rambam brings two verses, and we were trying to understand why he brings two verses. But we'll get back to the Rambam. So let's go now inside, and let's learn the machlekes between Rambam and where do we go?
What shul are you in?
This is Chabad of Fort Lauderdale. Okay. Let's go to
Rabbi's moving to Florida. We're all stuck here. Rabbi's moving to Florida.
We have a whole community of Beis Betzalel migrants to Florida, so we have to visit here sometimes. No. Anyways, I'm on page 4. What is that? 410. On the bottom of the page, bottom left. Whether or not this half coin is considered like a sacrifice of an individual or sacrifice the community is an argument in the Rashi and Rambam. How is it an argument in Rashi and Rambam? Rashi says concerning this gift to Hashem of the half coin, the Torah says it's an atonement for your soul. Why is a half coin considered an atonement? Rashi says because a sacrifice causes atonement. Rashi says, since with the half coin the communal sacrifices are purchased, so it comes out that the half coin is considered in the status of a carbon tzibur, and it causes atonement because it's a gift that purchases the communal sacrifices. Rashi uses the words in the Torah, it's an atonement for all your souls, for everyone. So it's a communal sacrifice. However, the Rambam brings a different pasuk. Rambam says each person should give an atonement for himself. This pasuk, Nemer Lashon Yachad, this pasuk is said by an individual, for an individual. Rambam says, I'm not talking about, the Torah does not intend that the half coin should be considered an atonement because it purchases the communal sacrifices. Rather, the reason why it's an atonement is because you gave this yourself. It's about your act of giving. It's not about what happens later. It's not about what's purchased with that money. It's about the act of giving itself, and therefore it's a korban yachid, it's a sacrifice in an individual. Rather, the gift itself is the kapar. That's the atonement. Yeah, it's a separate sacrifice. It's not that this purchases the sacrifices. It's that this itself is a sacrifice. That's how the Rambam learns. This will explain another distinction between Rashi and the Rambam. According to Rashi, when you give the half coin, you have to have in mind, what am I giving that half coin for? I'm giving this half coin to purchase the sacrifice. You have to have that in mind when you give the half coin. Move on. According to the Rambam, something else. When the Rambam talks about the halacha of giving the half coin, he does not mention at all that every Jew is obligated to participate in the sacrifices. He mentions that later on. The Rambam says, as a separate concept, that we're obligated to give money towards these communal sacrifices. And so he puts them in two different halachas because they're two different concepts. There is what the money is used for, and there's the act of giving. The act of giving itself is a mitzvah, which has nothing to do with what it's purchased for. And therefore, according to Rambam, you wouldn't have to have in mind when you give the half coin what you're purchasing it for, because there's a separate sacrifice. This is a gift to Hashem, which is a separate concept, what the money is used for is later. But right now, you're giving a sacrifice to Hashem by giving this half coin. So that's a separate mitzvah. It's an intrinsic atonement by the virtue of the gift itself, not by what it's used for. The Rambam writes in chapter 4, what should you do with the money? It's a brand new thing. With the money that is given every year by every Jew, you buy the sacrifice. The actual gift of the half coin is not because of the sacrifices. That's just because you're Jewish, you have to give a half coin. You give this, you have a mitzvah to cause atonement for yourself, and therefore you have to give a half coin. And by the way, that money is going to be used for your obligation to donate to the Karban Sibur. Great. But that's not what your gift is about. Your gift is about your personal atonement to Hashem and giving your half coin. If you move on, now we'll answer our other question about the two verses. Rambam brings two verses to explain the halacha you have to give the half coin. Page 412 on top. Sefer Mitzvah Shepsukman now. From each of the two verses that the Rambam brings, we learn two different elements about the half coin. From the pasuk that each person should give atonement, we learn that the half shekel is considered like a sacrifice. When you give the half coin, it's considered for you like a sacrifice. When a pasuk say gidnu, this initial kodavar echad in this nas didn't geskum mit tirshel esa gelen nifradim, shizim famachas gemet shekel achas kishlosh nagar ben rogatshave shir ahatzing leishim tzar. There's another halacha about the half coin that we learned yesterday, that you have to give one item. Not allowed to give 10 coins or the value of anything that will equal up to the half coin. You have to give it a coin, which is a currency of a half shekel. So since the Torah says, this is what you should give, and it sounds like you're giving one item, so that from there we learn you can't give 10 gear, you can't give 10 coins which equal up to one half coin. Rather, you have to give in one shot, as the Rogatchover says, that the amount of the half coin is a shir atzmi, not shir mitzvah, which means it's not something which is, it's not an amount that is accumulative, that you could put a bunch of things together to reach that amount. Rather, the half coin is a intrinsic. Sorry for using that word again. I know I use 3 syllables in the West Coast, but now the shir hamtzarif means that you're giving something which equals to a half coin. That's what you might think. So the Torah says, with this exactly you have to give. You have to give this precise thing, the half coin. It has to be not just something that equals to a half coin, it has to be a half coin. So that's what the Rambam is 2 verses. The first verse, again, is to tell you that the purpose of the half coin is to cause your personal atonement. And the second, brother, can you hear me? The reception is okay?
Yes, it's good.
Good. The second pasuk is to tell you that the goal, that the way you give has to be one entire half coin, not a bunch of small coins together. In other words, in addition to what we just said before, you can't give in installments, you also can't give in pieces. You can't give together in one installment 10 small coins which equal up to one half coin. Rather, it has to be zayin, it has to be an entire half coin. Like in our American currency, it has to be a half dollar. You learn to halachas over here. We learn one thing about the gavra, about the person who's giving the half coin. Another thing we learn about is the item of the half coin. This method of learning is very popular in Brisk. Gavra and Chefza. The Brisker Rav explained many halachas notera with this method of Gavra and Chefza, the person and the item. Let's see. From the pasuk, and each person should give atonement for himself. We learn from here halacha about the person who's giving. That he has to give it in one shot. He can't give it in installments. That's a mitzvah about him. When a pasuk zayitnu lemis halacha legabe achevsa davenita shachaydu des dafka zes amitzir shamachta shekel mamish b'peish machta shekel ikasar shavdi machar shkali. And from the verse, this is what you should give. We learn halacha about the item that's given. At what the item that's given has to be a full half coin. It can't be something that is the quality of the value of a half coin. Rather, this exact thing you should give. You have to give a item which is a half coin. So number one, so one verse teaches you the way you give it has to be in one shot, not in installments. And the other verse teaches you that the item you're giving has to be a full half coin. This is emphasized by the language in the Rambam. The Rambam says, you have to give it all at once in one installment. That the two expressions, the Rambam all at once and one shot, are hinting to that it has to be one item and it's to be given in one installment. Okay.
Question.
Yes.
Question.
Again,
if that's the case, why don't we just use one? Why can't we use one $half coin and put it in 3 times instead of using 3 and do it 3 times or whatever, 3 times, whatever it is we do? Why don't we use $1 coin?
It's an interesting question. It's an interesting question, and I think that you probably could do it that way, by 50 cents and buy the half coin, then 50 cents and buy a half coin. You could probably do that. But the fact that you didn't do it with 3 half coins at once is certainly significant. There must be something that I don't know. But according to what we're learning until now, it seems that will be perfectly okay. The reason we give three half coins is because the Torah mentions the word truma 3 times. So that's why we give 3 half coins. Let's look in note 49. You cannot give a little bit, rather you have to give it all at once, at one installment. The Torah says you can't give less than a half a coin. If the Torah just wanted us to give a half coin, it just say give a half a coin. So why does the Torah say don't give less? What the Torah is emphasizing by saying don't give less is that even the act of giving, it should not be the item you're giving is less than half a coin. So he learns this out, the Kira Sefer learns this out from the words lo yamid, don't give less. Avo, even though the Rambam does bring this verse too, the verse which says a rich man should not give more and a poor man should not give less. The Rambam uses this verse just to teach us that even the poor person is obligated to give the half coin. The Rambam doesn't use that verse regarding the actual mitzvah. So for the Rambam, he needs the verse that we said before, this is what you should give, to teach us that the item that you're giving. According to the Kiryas Sefer, the reason why you have to give a full half coin is because you can't give less than half a coin. In other words, it's just an element, just an aspect, it's just a detail about the giving. It's not about the mitzvah itself. According to him, it's like it's not about the essence of the mitzvah. It's more about a detail in the mitzvah. According to the Rambam, the fact that you have to give a half coin specifically is because that's what the mitzvah is. It's kind of like in other mitzvahs, there's certain things which may be critical to the mitzvah to be done, but it's not part of the mitzvah. Let's think about this for. Let's think of an example. Think of an example for this. Okay, davening. The halacha is when you daven, you have to say the words. But what is davening really about? Davening is about davening to Hashem with your heart. As the Torah says, you should serve Hashem with all your heart. So you're supposed to daven to Hashem with your heart. That's what davening is. Halacha is, and if you're not fulfilling the mitzvah of davening, let's say it with your mouth. And that's in Tanya in chapter 38. The Alter says because the davening isn't just about with your heart. You have to also cause the kedusha of Hashem to come to this world, and if you have to say the words of davening. You have to say it with your all kavana and also with your mouth and all your body to bring the kedusha into your body, into the world. You have to say the words.
And two half chickens don't make a whole.
Huh?
And 2 half chickens don't make a whole.
Right.
It's got to be the real thing. The full intent.
Full intent. So I'm mentioning this because I want to say that, but the fact that to say the words is not the mitzvah of davening. That's a detail about the mitzvah of davening, which without that detail, the mitzvah wouldn't be done. That's not what the mitzvah of davening is. Mitzvah of davening is to daven to Hashem with your heart. And how should you daven to Hashem with your heart? You have to say the words. In a similar way, the Kiryas Sefer, he says the mitzvah is to give a half coin to Hashem. Doesn't matter what the currency is. Oh, the Torah says it shouldn't be. There's a detail there. The detail is it shouldn't be less than a half coin. So therefore, you can't give less than a half coin. It's a detail in the mitzvah. It's not the essence of the mitzvah. According to the Rambam, Torah says, this is what you should give. The mitzvah is that it should be specifically a half coin. The fact that it has to be the size of a half coin, it has to be the currency of a half coin, according to the Rambam, is connected and part and parcel with the essence of the mitzvah. The fact that Rambam puts this in the very first halacha indicates that this is a part and parcel of the essence of the mitzvah. What's the difference? So we have some different ways of approaching what this mitzvah is, but is there any practical halacha nafkamina? My Zayda always told me that In yeshiva, you could ask a question: is a ceiling on top of the walls, or is the walls under the ceiling? And it's both things are true. But the question is, what's the nafkamina? What's the difference? So we have two ways of approaching the mitzvah. What's the difference? There's a difference. If you came to the base of Mikdash and you gave a half shekel in installments, you gave a few pieces of silver together, did you do the mitzvah? According to the Kiryas Sefer, you didn't do it the right way. You missed a detail, but you still did the mitzvah. According to the Rambam, no mitzvah was done. The Torah says give a half shekel. So it wasn't a half shekel. It's not acceptable. It's not part of. This is not the mitzvah. Okay, let's go now to note 50. Why do we need two verses? We said there's one verse that tells me that I, the one who's giving, has to give in one shot, in one installment. Another verse tell me that the item I'm giving has to be one entire half shekel, one entire half. If I know that I can only give one entire half, so obviously I can't give it in installments. So why do we need to have two verses? If we're saying that the cheftza, that the item that's being given it has to be specifically a half coin, then that precludes the possibility of giving it in installments. So why do we need to have another verse to tell me that the gavra, the one who's giving, can't give in installments? Since you have to give that specific currency, it's impossible to give that in parts. Parenthetically, there it points out that the Rambam only brings one verse in the Sefer Mitzvahs, and also, sorry, not in Sefer Mitzvahs. The Rambam has the Mishnah Torah, the Rambam, the 3 chapters of Rambam that we learn every day. The 1 chapter, that's the Mishnah Torah, the 14 books of the Rambam. Then he has before this, Rambam wrote another book, Sefer Mitzvahs, book just the Mitzvah Torah. Now, within the 14 books of the Mishnah Torah, the Rambam introduces the 14 books with a list of all the mitzvahs. So when the Rambam writes the list of the mitzvahs, he mentions the verse through which each mitzvah is learned. In there, the Rambam doesn't mention both verses. So it seems that I was pointing out that although the Rambam does say in some places in Mishnah Torah itself, he mentions both verses, but in his explanation, the Talmud, the Rambam wrote an explanation to Mishnah. He only mentions one verse. And in his introduction to the 14 books of the Rambam, he also over there only mentions one verse. But still, the Rambam does mention 2 verses over here in Mishnah Torah. Why do we need both verses? The minus is let's say the guy comes to Beis Hamikdash and he has 1/2 shekel in pieces. You have the right currency. You come to the Beis Hamikdash with, let's say, the American's half silver dollar, but your half silver dollar is broken up in pieces. Would that work? So if you're giving the half coin, but it's broken in pieces. So the pasuk which says that the person giving the coin has to give it in one shot teaches us that not only does the item you're given have to be the currency of a half coin, but the way you're giving it also has to be in one gift, and therefore you can't give it in pieces. That's one way to explain it. Or another way to explain it is since you have to Since we said that when you give the half coin, what do you achieve? You achieve an atonement for your soul. According to Rambam, unlike Rashi, the actual gift of the half coin causes your kapara. It's considered like a sacrifice to Hashem. So the Rambam points out by bringing the pasuk of to tell you that if you would give the coin in installments, not only are you missing in the actual mitzvah of the gift, you're also missing in the kapara, also missing the atonement. I don't remember the whole story, but basically it says that you go to a Pidyon Haben, you are, it's considered like you have fasted 83 times. So many people are very careful to, whenever they invite the Pidyon Haben to be there, because who knows how many fasts each of us are responsible to fast. The Rizal says just getting angry one time It fasts 151 times. So Hillel Parcher, he didn't count those fasts against the Arizal's obligation. He didn't say, okay, I'm done with anger now because I had 34 left. I went to Pinja Ben. Okay, now he didn't count it. And he said because there's a difference between the actual spiritual impact of the fast and how and the way it affects you here in this physical world. That's another element there too. So that in a similar way, you might think that if you give the half coin in installments, you're missing the half coin, and therefore that should achieve some atonement. So therefore, the Rambam says no, unless you give it the way the Torah says, in one installment, you're missing something, not just in the chef, not just in the object, you're also missing something in regards to the impact on yourself in the gav. Okay, let's do one more thing in note 52. I'll try to paraphrase this in the Hebrew. The Rambam says that two people can give one whole shekel for two people. In other words, me and Dr. Bressman go to the base of Migdash and we'll give one shekel for both of us. So that contradicts this whole thing. We're saying it has to be specifically a half coin, a half currency, a currency of a half. And Rambam says two people can give one whole coin. So number one, there was a coin called a kalbain. A kalbain was a coin that when you wanted to get change of a full shekel to half shekels were worth more than each, in the language of Dr. Bressman's analogy of the half chicken, the half chicken was worth more than two halves of chicken were worth more than a whole chicken. Because everyone needed to give the half shekel once a year to the Beis Hamikdash, therefore that made that currency worth more, because everyone needed to have that currency. And therefore, if you wanted to exchange a full shekel for two half shekels, the Rambam said you have to add a kalboin, you have to add another coin, another coin to pay for the exchange. So if two people come to Beis Hamikdash for the full coin, they also have to add a kalboin. Number one. So in other words, they're also giving the ability to divide that coin. They're also giving the payment for its division. Now, number two, the main point is, according to the Rambam, it's when the two people come with the whole coin, he considers that as if each of them is giving a half coin. They're giving together, though there's one coin there, but the Torah doesn't view it as one coin. The Torah views that one coin as two halves of a coin. And that's why they have to give the kalbain. They have to give that extra currency there for the payment of dividing it. Because since each person has to give a full half coin, so if you're giving one whole coin, in order for that coin to be considered a half coin, you also have to pay for the ability to switch the full coin into two halves. And therefore, you have to add the kalbain when two people come together and they give the full coin. They have to add also the kalbain. So you can't say, oh well it's great, I have a full coin, I know what to do, he'll pay me. You have to add the kalbain there too, because in order for it to be considered a half coin, you have to also make it possible for the person working Beis Hamikdash, the gizbar, to divide that coin. And therefore when he gets it, the Torah views that as the gift of a half coin. Okay, let's so in short, what do we do today? What we learned today is that the Rashi and Rambam have an argument about the definition of what the gift of the half coin is. According to Rambam, it's a gift of an individual, it's like a korban yachid. According to Rashi, it's like a korban tzibur. And therefore, according to Rashi, when you give the half coin, you have to have in mind you're giving this for the sake of communal sacrifices, number one. According to the Rambam, you don't have that in mind at all, because it's considered a gift to Hashem as an atonement, because you gave something to Hashem. What's bought with it later is not important. And we also explain why the Rambam brings two verses to tell us the halacha of the half coin. One verse tells us the person who's giving the half coin has to give it in one installment. And the other verse tells us the item that's being given has to be given as one whole half coin. Then we learned various other svarim which have a similar approach, but different. The Rambam, who says that the gift of the half coin is part of the essence of the mitzvah. The gift you have to give Hashem is specifically a half coin. Any questions or comments or criticism of tomatoes or cucumbers? Okay, I woke up Yonatan up. Yonatan, what are you looking at? Down in Broad Street already? Great day, Yonatan. Great day, Mordechai. Great day, Beryl. Great Dr. Bresson. Great day, Raya. Litrot.